Greetings, Lumpur, and thank you for sharing the Dhamma as ever. Just a question. It was kind of reminded me in what you were saying this evening, but a few weeks ago you talked about the state between sleeping and waking, that sort of intermediate state where one can be conscious or aware, but the body can go to sleep and the mind seems still. There's just that sort of hypnagogic state, I think it's called, sort of in between sleep and waking. Is that the same as Puru or Vijayadhatu? That sort of awareness when you're not following, as you were saying before, the mind going off on adventures, it's just sort of still in the middle.
Well, it depends, doesn't it? If you're mindful, maybe it is. So, say like if you're very mindful and enter a state of samadhi, if it's a deep state of samadhi, well, you let go of the experience of your body, your senses. So you're not seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching. The body may completely disappear. You're just with the mind itself. And it's very pleasant. There's a lot of rapture and joy. And your mind is right there, so there's no mental proliferation going on. And that can be like a dream state, but of course the important thing is you're totally mindful. The dream state, like halfway between the normal awakened state and then deep sleep, generally, most of the time, you're not fully mindful, and these dreams come up and they confuse you, take your way on little journeys, all kinds of strange things happen, whatever, and then you fall asleep. Or you wake up if it's on the waking up part of your sleep cycle. But there's some similarities. Say like when you go into a deep state of samadhi, stillness, your mind is fully one-pointed, it merges with its object, and you experience what we call ekaggata, one-pointedness of mind. So it's not distracted in any way, there's no mental proliferation, there's no movement or thinking, it's just knowing. But of course, when you start to withdraw from that state, you become aware of your senses and your body again, well, you'll start to have sense impressions which will stimulate memories and thoughts coming up. But at that moment, you may well experience nimittas. Not everyone does, and not every person does all the time, but because the mind is starting to experience itself again in a slightly coarser level, having been just totally one-pointed and with non-proliferation, totally still, now it's starting to come out of that. Well, that's the time when you may experience visions, sounds, what we call nimittas, which may or may not give you some insight, and they can be very deluding as well, so you have to be careful. It can be a basis for attachment. But they are very similar to dreams, except for you're completely mindful. That's the whole point. It's different from the dream state where you tend to be not very mindful, and often you forget the dream and you're confused by it, or different things are happening. You're not very, don't have much self-control in a dream, but a nimitta is coming out of stillness, so the mind is still, and you're just observing some visual image, scene, things, or you're having some special knowledge arising, like a sound, a visual image, a sound, can be a smell, taste, whatever. The important thing is the puru, the one who knows, the one-pointedness is maintained. That's the difference.
Thank you so much. Very helpful.
Sadhu, thank you for the question. Next question, we will invite Yeah,
Hi,
go ahead.
dear Ajahn. Greetings from Singapore. I have a question because I feel like I have a lot of doubts in my practice. Does the object of meditation matter? Must it be the breath or anything that arises in the present moment? So, for example, if there's pain, I tend to like to move my attention from my breath to look at the pain and watch it until it goes away and then come back to my breath. And then I think my confusion is whether I should do that. Is that a form of restlessness? Or if I should just pay attention to the breath and the pain at the same time?
Many parts of our meditation we're learning. So learning involves some experimentation and seeing what happens. So, for example, if you're meditating on the breath and you're able to stay with the breath for a while, perhaps you've developed some skill in that, but then gradually or quickly you start to experience physical pain coming into your awareness from some part of the body. I would say the first thing to do is just see if you can stay with the breath and ignore the pain. Strengthen your mindfulness on the breath and just practice ignoring everything, letting go of everything. That might be your first aim or goal. But you may find, if you meditate regularly, you almost certainly will find there are reoccurring painful feelings, something that you've had before and it's coming up again. Maybe if you're sitting longer periods, definitely pain will come up in your legs, your back, whatever. So you may also notice certain reactions in your mind. When you feel some pain, you may notice tension, physical tension, you tense up with pain. Mental tension, you start to have some negative thoughts, you don't want it, it distracts you, agitates your mind, maybe it stops you from being with the breath. So what do you do then? Well, you may have tried staying with the breath and you can't stick with the breath. The pain is just too strong. It pulls your attention and it kind of knocks you off balance. So then what do you do? Well, maybe one way is to experiment, go to the pain itself with your mind. You're sitting there, your eyes are closed, but you send your attention to the pain and you start learning about it in your meditation. Questioning it, observing it. Where is it? How intense is it? Is it changing? Because pain can be more intense and then less intense. What is this pain? Where is it? Is it in the bone or in the flesh? Is it just a mental feeling sort of associated with the body, or is it sort of physical as well? Are there physical sensations you can identify? Is the pain kind of very narrow, focused, centered like a pinprick? Is it more general, spreading out around your leg or the part of the body? There's many questions you can ask and learn about as you observe that pain. So you can do that either because you can't stay with the breath and maybe have no choice. So you start investigating the pain to try and get some insight. And when I say investigate the pain, what you're doing is asking questions, observing, rather than running away from the pain, which is probably what another part of your mind will be saying, is saying, oh, I can't stay with this, I hate this, I don't want this, and you just want to stop the meditation or think of something enjoyable perhaps. But we're learning now is saying, no, I'm going to learn from this pain, ask these questions, observe it, get to know it better. And by doing that, you may find your mindfulness improves again. You may even be able to go back to the breath and now ignore the pain or just know it's there but not worry about it. You may also learn about how we cling to pain, painful feelings, dukkha vedana, and how that conditions the mind into aversion, fear, anxiety. You might start to learn about that process. And as you get familiar with something, you learn about it, you know it, it bothers you less because you're familiar with it. So you may get to a point where if you meditate regularly, you experience pain, maybe no choice, you have to go through that, but now you're changing your relationship to the pain or your attitude to it, and you're just knowing it as a feeling and less as a my feeling, my pain, and reacting to it with your own negativity, aversion, or seeking of distraction. Maybe you can just know pain more in a more neutral way, and you can develop more equanimity towards the pain and your reaction to the pain. And most meditators this will be part of their practice. There's really not much choice, because if you meditate regularly, often for longer periods, well, there'll be some pain come up, and you have to learn how to make it an object for your meditation, for your mindfulness, rather than just always reacting to it, trying to get away from it, hiding from it. So see what you can learn about it up to a point, and then maybe, if the pain is continuing and it's very unpleasant, well, you might decide, I've done enough pain contemplation for today, and then I'll take a break because it's not easy. But overall, over time, if you keep doing this, well, you'll get better at it, and you can stick with the pain. And your attitude to pain will change. You'll start to see pain more as non-self. It's just a feeling. What the Buddha said, when he taught the Satipatthana Sutta, see feeling in the feeling, really means just seeing feeling as just feeling, without any added on sense of self, not proliferating, I like it, I don't like it, I want it, don't want it, I hate it, this, that, the other. None of that. Just knowing the feeling as a feeling. That may be your aim, to get to that point where you can be mindful enough. So the breath meditation helps, because the breath meditation is training your basic mindfulness, but then sometimes you have to branch out or explore different experiences that come up during the meditation, such as pain in your body, and explore the relationship between that painful feeling and your mind.
Thank you, Ajahn. I think why I'm a little bit scared to just focus on the breath is because I used to have teachers last time that said that if you just focus on the breath, you'll become too attached and you're not able to cultivate wisdom. So I think that fear arises a lot in my mind, and the doubt as well. Yeah.
Well, it sounds correct. I mean, you can attach to the breath or the state of samadhi, but in reality, I don't think people do it enough to get attached to it. I think the real problem is we don't practice mindfulness of breathing enough, and we can stay with the breath for a little while and then our mind wanders away. I think that's the more common experience, and that we don't really need to be too worried about attaching to the breath. I think we need to improve our skill at staying with the breath, knowing the breath. And what you find is, if your mindfulness improves, then you can contemplate and develop wisdom much better. You can see things more clearly because your mind is more steady, more still. And I'm not saying you can't contemplate, you practice that as well, but you'll find improving your level of samadhi will improve the wisdom faculty, and they'll support each other.
Thank you so much, Sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu. Next question is, what gets reborn when the body dies? Consciousness? If so, then without a physical body, why do beings reborn into the hell and ghost realms feel pain?
Well, ghost realms, hell realms are still considered a part of the sensual realms. So they do have a physical body. It's just a very subtle one that you normally don't see. You normally don't see ghosts or devas or hell realm beings, but they still have a basis for feeling pleasure and pain, because they still have khandhas, 5 khandhas. It's just they're so subtle the human eye doesn't usually see them. But if you meditate, some people see them through their meditation and training, but normally not. So of course, hell realm beings, ghosts, devas, they feel pleasure and pain depending on their karma that they've made in the past and it's coming up. So, why would a being be born in hell? Well, they've created a lot of negative karma that's coming back to them in the form of pain. And Ajahn Chah used to say, well, you don't understand about heaven and hell, well, just watch your own mind from day to day and you'll notice the causes for heaven and hell lie right within your mind through your actions. And unskillful actions are creating suffering for yourself, aren't they? When you attach and cling on to states of anger, fear, cruelty, generates a lot of pain and suffering for yourself, for others as well, but also it's coming back to yourself and you're experiencing it in your mind. Same with heaven. Heaven and hell are really experiences of the mind that you can observe every day through your actions and the consequences of your actions. And even if you remove this physical body when you die, your body dies, it stops working. As you say, consciousness arises in the next realm of existence if you haven't reached Nibbana, and that will be determined by the karma you've made, pleasant and unpleasant. Unfortunately, some people make unpleasant karma and reborn in ghost realm or hell realm, or animal realm.
Sadhu. Next question. Is it normal to feel that one doesn't seem to be part of the world after practice? When we practice, does it lead one to withdraw from one's family? Is that the right way to practice?
Well, the quality of detached awareness or equanimity comes up through the practice, and detachment means a certain detachment. But it's not delusion. If you're practicing, the Noble Eightfold Path, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, so you're still fully aware of any relationships such as family, obligations, responsibilities. You're aware of your body. You may be equanimous, but you're also aware that you have a body that needs to go to the toilet, eat food, have a rest, go here, go there. And your equanimity can go with you as you do the various things that you do. So it doesn't have to mean that you stop functioning as a human being. But what it does mean is your relationship to the world changes because you're now focused on ending suffering. And equanimity is helping you to let go of pursuits and actions coming from unwholesome intentions. You're no longer wanting to follow greed, anger, and delusion. So that will have changed your relationship to the people around you. You may not wish to indulge in certain activities that are promoting mental defilement. You don't want to act in that way. You don't want to support other people doing that either. So yes, it will change your relationship, but it won't mean you give up. You're still, if you're practicing the Buddhist path, you naturally will be developing what we call samma sankappa, which includes kindness and compassion. So the further you get along your path of practice, generally the more wisdom, understanding, kindness, compassion you have, the more renunciation, letting go you have, that frees your mind and your body, which is the servant of the mind, to do more good for other people. So maybe you'll be kinder to your family, kinder to other people. It will come out in your behavior, the results of your practice. But it doesn't mean to say you'll necessarily do everything that they do. If you practice meditation regularly, generally you will have more self-control, so maybe you won't get so emotional over things, you won't lose your temper so often, you won't be so self-centered, you tend to become more sensitive to people, more aware of their suffering, so maybe you can see how you can help them. Generally, it should improve things.
Sadhu Lungpo. Another question. On the point of keeping the practice, how to keep the motivation and discipline in daily life as a layperson. At some point, the reason for meditation and daily practice is clear as day. But at another time, life comes in and extra stress arises, or a couple of sleepless nights, and the practice is pushed back. Where to find the strength to continue when things become really tough?
Well, strengths of mind, one way the Buddha talked about that, said there's the 5 strengths of saddha, faith, confidence in the Buddha and the teachings, virya, effort, sati, mindfulness, samadhi, states of calm and stillness, and panya, insight, wisdom. So, when you're straying from the path or losing inspiration, motivation, go back to the teachings, listen to the Dhamma again, read the suttas, listen to the Dhamma, meet with teachers, do things that will bring up your faith again. Or if you're on your own, just remember why you practiced in the first place. Go back to your original motivation for the practice. You can do that anytime. Literally use your memory, but also just sort of think it through. Why do I practice anyway? What's the purpose of all this? Teach yourself why you practice and get some of the energy and the inspiration back again. And there's other reflections we use for this as well. So like the Buddha said, reflect on the impermanence of life. We're not here forever. Remind yourself, I don't know when I'm going to die. I just don't know how much longer I've got to practice. I might as well go back and start meditating again. Say you've strayed and you've given it up. You say, well, I don't know how much longer I've got. I better start again. Or if you're experiencing some suffering, you're ill or you have some problem in your life, in your relationships or money problems, whatever it is, say, oh, this is the reminder, this is the teacher coming back, telling me get back to do some more meditation to clean up my mind. So try and use the normal experiences of daily life to actually bring you back to the Dhamma and motivate you.
Sadhu, sadhu. Next, we have a live question.
Good evening, Lompo. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How's your eye?
It's going well. Recovering well, I think.
Doesn't look too bad.
But I can't see.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah, but anyway, I hope you're keeping warm, Lompo.
Yeah, it's quite cold, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So my question is, sometimes before I meditate, I set my mind to keep with Buddha. But then along the way, the mind kind of like being so-called naturally switch back to the breath, because I've been practicing a lot of breath meditation. But because I set my mind to keep Buddha at the start, should I just bring it back to Buddha, or is it okay to just follow with the breath naturally?
Well, you find over time, if you meditate regularly and over longer periods of time, months, years, you'll have one main meditation object. And it doesn't mean to say you can't use other techniques and objects, but you'll tend to have one main way that you become familiar with. So, if you're trying to learn a new meditation object or change your technique, change your object, you'll find you're probably drawn back to the original one because you've already experienced some peace and good things with that original meditation object. So you might find the easiest thing is just carry on using it. I'm not saying never experiment or never try other things, but it may be a good thing that you return to the breath. If you're trying to use Buddha and you go back to the breath, well, just stick with the breath perhaps. Your mind is telling you something. I think more of the problem is not that you go from the breath, Buddha to the breath, but more likely is, you go from Buddha to thinking about work or where you want to go next week or all these other distractions. That's the biggest problem. But we really need to develop one particular meditation object a lot, whether it's the breath, Buddha, contemplation of the body, whatever. There are a number of different meditation techniques we can use. Really work with that a lot. But then try, maybe have a few other meditations that you use for particular times. So you can certainly experiment with Buddha, but if you keep coming back to the breath, we'll stick with the breath. If you're angry, we've got metta. If you're full of lust, you've got the body contemplation. It's okay to use other objects, but I would stick with one main object as much as possible.
Okay. All right. Sure. Thank you, Luang Por.
Sadhu, sadhu. That may be the last question for tonight.
Okay, well, wish you all well. Hope you keep up your practice, have the patience to go through the difficulties, and we'll see you next time.